Welcome back, you guys. This is the Art School Graduate. Today, my guest is a Nashville-based lettering artist known for her gritty, textured styles that blend culture, music, and storytelling. Her work embraces imperfection and brings a human voice back to lettering. We talk about creativity, identity, and what it means to find your authentic voice as an artist. Today, my guest is the talented Cymone Wilder. Cymone, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I think that intro hit the nail on everything right there for you.
Yeah, I
That
sure
was
did.
Yes. And with my background, first love being graffiti, it was kind of a no-brainer reaching out to you because it was just like your love for lettering was my first love and introduction to fine art. So
Mhm.
with people who are just discovering who you are for the first time, how do you introduce yourself and what kind of work do you make?
So, I mean, you said it. I'm a lettering artist, and I saw someone, I think it was Jessica Heish, who started calling herself a lettering artist. So I didn't want to just be a graphic designer or just an artist. I think I very specifically know, love, and just will hammer out some letters. So I think tacking on the artist portion felt important to kind of elevate what that is. And it's not just, little doodles in the sketchbook. It's also that, but it's so much more. And so I like to think of myself as a lettering artist. And I think that just, it's so specific, but it leaves it so open. So I'm not just a muralist. I'm not just a painter. I'm not just a designer. I am whatever a letter can go on. And so I think that just creates a very expansive world for letters for me and feels right up my alley.
So my $1,000,000 question for you.
Mhm.
Where did the love of lettering come from? Has it always been there? Is it something that stemmed from you seeing something younger? Where did that slow introduction come to where you're like, oh, this is my pocket. I'm going to stay here.
I don't know if there was ever like one little moment in history
Hmm.
that hit it, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention the influence from my father. He works in insurance or worked in insurance and as a science guy, but he's just very creative. And I think he's one of those dudes who always has a little side gig going. And I remember growing up, he was like, a little side gig he had was calligraphy. So he would do like people's diplomas and like certificates and things like that. And I think that's, a big early influence. But then there were like moments when low key my mom would like have me go return something to Walmart. And back in the day, they used to have you like sign the receipt to return it. So I would like forge my mother's signature. So, there's early influences of like some light forgery. And then I think just like in the sketchbook, in the margins, I was always like drawing block letters. I think like I was very much inspired by graffiti without really knowing it. But I was from a small, predominantly white rural town. And so there was not a lot of safe opportunity for me to explore graffiti. So I think, I had meager beginnings in the margins of my sketchbook there. And so I think those are kind of like early influences. So maybe not like one moment in time, but just a lot of things kind of coming together to point me in that direction.
Sounds like you and Trey, he came from a small
Hmm.
part in upstate New York. And he was like, the first time I came into contact with graffiti was like going to a flea market, seeing a guy airbrush. And
Yeah.
he was like, how is he doing all these styles with no tracing, like no
Hmm.
stencil? And I was like, really? He was like, that's when it caught him. And I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy. So your work feels textured, textile, and full of personality. So when did when did your lettering become something you turned from, I enjoy this, to being like, "Oh, I can put my voice into these pieces and people can find me and hear me."
I mean, to some degree, I think lettering has always been my voice. I don't know if I like knew that for a while, but I'm not, unless you're like my ride or die homegirl or something like that, like I'm not a super chatty person. I don't feel like, I mean, I don't personally feel like I'm able to like articulate myself well, like speaking. And so I think lettering is just a way to kind of slow that process down to get my thoughts out in a way that is visually appealing, but is just, it gives me a moment to like really sit with a thought and let it kind of spin for better or for worse. My
Mhm.
therapist would probably argue, but I think it just gives me a moment to really digest a phrase or a lyric or something like that. And just, it gives me a moment to echo that thing if it's been sitting with me for a while, or it just gives me a way to articulate a thought I've had or that I've been sitting on for a while and get it out in a way that doesn't feel maybe as vulnerable as just like saying it to someone, face to face.
When pulling what you're going to write or what words are coming to you, where do you usually go for that space? Is
I
it
mean, I think.
music? Do you like write your own poems? Because I interviewed someone that said they like started pulling from their own writings for
Mhm.
information. So where does it come from for you?
I think that's evolved a lot over kind of my course of doing lettering. I think in the early days of lettering, it's always kind of been music. Music is always there, like a lyric that just really like hits a heartstring a certain way, or makes you feel, makes you make that
Mhm,
nasty face when you listen to
mhm,
something that's like so good. I think that's always there, but early on in my career, my faith was very important to me. So a lot of that stuff was like scripture and things like that. And as I moved away from that part of my life, things started to get into like some social activism. So I was looking up like quotes from like James Baldwin or other people that were inspiring me during that time. And now it's kind of like a mix of some of that social justice, some of those social justice topics, and just like stupid phrases that I'm saying that, are that people are saying that might be trendy, or just, little quotes and things from television or,
mhm.
pop culture. So it evolves and it changes. And I try not to make it one thing, but right now it is kind of just like the stupid phrases in my head and some of the social justice stuff.
Got it. But you know what I love about your work? I love that it embraces like the imperfection in a very polished world since everything is damn near digital, damn near we're trying to teach AI how to make clean lines and shapes.
Mhm.
That stuff's crazy. But for you, what pulls you toward that gritty, handmade imperfection of this art form?
Man, I think I'm just naturally attracted to it. But to your point, like a lot of the tools that we use as designers, as artists, are becoming all digital. And I think when I started to like draw on the iPad, I felt like I was missing kind of
Mhm.
that really tactical, tactile feel. And so, as soon as I started using the iPad, I was like, okay, how can I make this still feel like I did it on paper? Early on it was like to cover up that I was using an iPad because it kind of felt like cheating, but I think it got to this point where I was just like, I still want that thing, even if it's on the screen, to feel like you can interact with it, you can touch it, feel it, all those good things. Because I think there's just something like special about that, and I think that that's something that humans are always going to gravitate towards a little bit more than something that is flattened on a screen.
So, was there ever a moment you felt yourself shifting where you were like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take this, I want to move from the polished to
Mhm.
what actually felt like you? Was there a singular moment or was there a project or anything that came up during that time where you're like, you know what? This would probably look better if I did this by hand.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a moment where it was like, "This will look better if I did this by hand," but
Hmm.
there I know when I was probably at my first job out of college, they had me doing, like, lettering stuff for social squares, and so I was doing, like, a lettering piece every day, and it was just, like, taking lettering and slapping it on an image, which at the time was, very trendy, and I was like, "This is cool, but, like, everybody is doing this. How do we make this feel a little bit more unique, a little bit more baked into the photo?" And I think there was, like, a day when, I was working a lot on tracing paper at the time, and I had all these different like sketches kind of inked up. And I would, instead of scanning it, I would take a picture with my phone and then send it so I could work with it in Photoshop. And I think just the way the like sketches and papers were organized on the page, and when I took that picture, there was like a sketch off in the corner that like kind of got clipped a little bit, and there was a piece of tracing paper on top of it. And when I started like messing with the main image, I was pulling the sliders, the contrast, all that stuff. I kind of saw what this like obscured little sketch off to the side was starting to do. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like the tracing paper on top kind of like blurred the edges in kind of a very inconsistent way, added this really nice
That's
texture. And
dope.
I think then I was like, I'm about to take this happy accent and I'm really about to like tease it out. And I think that was kind of the moment where I was like, I think I could like really make this work and make it feel a little bit more real by, this little accidental thing that happened. And I think that was probably like the one moment I was like, I'm about to like, this is about to be my whole personality. And then I mean, it kinda did, and I think since then, like, every, like, little texture trick I've learned has been something that I've, like, stumbled upon on accident because I did something wrong or something, got included that wasn't supposed to. So that, like, in addition to me trying to include, like, this analog moment in a digital process, I try to incorporate the accidents into my process as well because, I mean, I think you just introduce something so unpredictable and delightful into your work when you let the accidents kinda help lead the way.
That's crazy because many designers, accidents can ruin them.
Right.
Like those happy accidents, I feel like that's where a lot of learning happens because, like you just said, you learn from it. It can be accepted. It can be like, oh, now I know not to do that. Or I can be like, I want to continue to do this. How can I
Mhm.
make this like part of my signature? Which is how like you just said it. Like a lot of people live in that space where it's just like, I gotta find me. I gotta make this work me. I gotta make it feel. And it's like, maybe if you kind of laid off of it and let it breathe and let it talk to you, you would make some dope shit.
Yeah.
Like, honestly.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
the let it talk to you. I mean, I feel like that is the thing, like,
Mhm.
in finding my voice over my career. Like, I think students a lot of the time are like, that's the first thing they wanna do as soon as they graduate. It's like, "How I find
Fine.
my voice, my
Right.
style?" And for me, it has just been kind of slowly pulling a thread towards getting to something that feels like me. So it's not just me like today, I'm gonna like do something totally different to get this very specific style. It's like, I'm gonna try this one thing today and I'll try that one thing tomorrow, but then maybe on top of that, I'll try another thing and like doing that over and
Yeah.
over and over again until something has slowly evolved into, you know, what is yours. Cause like, I mean, you're gonna find your style no matter what. Like I could copy a master and I could copy that master so well, but there's always gonna be something that I do that they didn't do that's gonna, like, start to look like my little signature, and I think you only, like, discover that by slowly, pulling on a thread.
Yeah. So what was I gonna say? I just drew a blank because I was thinking about something. Do you feel your voice became stronger in your work or in your pieces once you started chasing that thread versus chasing the perfection?
But yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I do think that there's, like I think you have to chase the perfection for a portion of your career because it really is just, like, gaining the, the skill set that the
Right.
masters have. You need to, like, master copy a little bit first. You need to get the foundations under your fingertips. You need to know the rules before you know where you can, like, break the rules to make it your own thing or make it, a really great thing. So, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about like identity and creative voice that you're very passionate about and even in your work. So your work feels deeply rooted in culture, texture, and feeling. What visual references or life experiences help shape this evolution to this point now?
I mean, I think my like original forever inspiration is always going to be like Blue Note records from like the 50s and 60s. Like Reed Wolf, I think was the photographer, designer. I think there was another guy I'm blanking. But I mean, it was just like such a masterclass in pulling, like designing layouts and just making it feel very tactical and real and honest to the like what was happening in jazz at that time. I think that that's always been my forever inspiration. And I think it like feels like such a good metaphor too, because jazz is that thing that inspired like so many other genres after that. So to have like this Blue Note inspiration start to inspire like my love for hip hop and the design that comes out of hip hop and my love for rock or, alt rock and like neo soul, like all of these things kind of had these roots in jazz. And you can see like in their design inspirations, like those things rooted in jazz. And I think it just like kind of trickles out from there. But that to me is like always going to be that cultural thing. And like jazz is black.
Yeah.
Jazz, it started with black people made it great, and that everybody got inspired by that, and I think there are just so many, like, again, things that stem from those people, like, really starting off and making some really crazy experimental shit, and then, begetting some really
Right.
great experimental shit.
Right. So let's stay with that word rooted. How has becoming more rooted in who you are has helped like shift or change the way you work?
Yeah, I think I'm one of those black people that discovered they were black a little later in life. There are a lot of black people who like grow up around black people, and I have my family, and we had our family
Hmm.
friends were all black, but like I said, I grew up in a predominantly white town. All my friends were white. It took me a second to like really understand my identity as a black person and really like fall in love with that. And I think like you kind of like if you were to scroll back on my Instagram through the beginning, you probably can like see that shift in my work as I'm like discovering that part of myself kind of in my like early 20s. Yeah, I think just like really loving myself, loving our people, loving everything that we are, that we create, that we make, I think has influenced my work, not just like in the way I talk and like the words I use, but like in the literal colors that I'm using and the textures that I'm like pulling from. I don't know. Black people are amazing. And I feel like we are just a wellspring of like such amazing stuff. And I think that like me starting to understand that from our people and from myself really starts to show in my work. And I think like I went through a period when it was all very like dark and moody and gritty, and it starts to become a little bit more colorful and vibrant. And there's a lot of like really great life. And I start pulling, colloquialisms that are relevant to us and are like things we say within our community. And like, I don't know. I really feel like, finding my identity as a black person helped me find my voice as an artist and has like helped me evolve my work in a way that I just don't think would have happened had I not like gone through that
Right.
self-discovery.
Right. So, being a Black woman, do you think embracing yourself made your work stronger, or do you think embracing the work made you fully embrace who you were?
I think embracing myself is the kind of the catalyst that like helped influence my work more so rather than the other way around. The art is like a part of me, but it is not all of me. And I think, my identity obviously is all of me. And so like figuring that part out from kind of the inside helps influence what I'm doing on the outside. That was really cheesy, but I
No,
mean,
it,
that's what
it
it is.
wasn't. It is what it is, but it makes sense though. It totally makes sense. So, I'm just curious. So, how do you separate the outside validation for the work from the internal belief that you have as like who you are as yourself?
I mean, it's hard. I don't know if I've like figured out like how to separate those two because I care about what people think. I know a lot of people are like, I just don't really I don't give a shit about anybody's thoughts. And I'm just like,
Right.
I kind of think that's a lie a lot of the times, unless, some people really gotta like that. But like I care about what people think about me. And I try not to let that influence too much, but it's always gonna influence, something about your work. And I think it like helps keep you a little bit honest and helps kind of steer, it steers the work to some degree, but it also steers like how I'm operating through my personal journey and like how I understand myself because none of us exist in a vacuum. Like we exist because of the interactions we have with the world around us and the people around us. So, yeah.
Okay. So, dealing with this like interaction and validation, has your work ever become a mirror that showed you something about yourself before
Mhm.
someone has, or the words someone might have spoken to you may have?
Maybe not like explicitly. I don't know
Hmm.
if I'm ever like looking at the work and I'm like, oh, wow, like that thought, popped
Gotcha.
up. But I do think like, in retrospect, I can like look back on my work and I can think about what was happening in my life and be like, oh, okay. I could see like I was learning something, from this interplay with my art and how people receive it and how I receive it and the feedback those, I get from all of those interactions.
So, when it comes to the feedback and things like that, how do you feel about self acceptance in your practice? does that kind of bring more peace to you, or is that just kind of along for the ride?
I think, I mean, it brings peace to me, but it is like all kind of like
Plays off
is
each
a
other.
back and forth like
Yeah.
interplay, you know? Like I think I find peace from creating the work, but I think creating the work, brings me peace, I guess. Like
Hmm.
um yeah, I think sometimes I go to the work for relief or to get a feeling out that's not necessarily peaceful. Like if I'm angry or like someone has said something to me that's like rocked my world, like sometimes to process that I need to create something. And there are other times when I'm at a place of just being completely content and at peace and I create work from that place. So I think, it's back and forth. I think it teaches
Yeah.
me and calms me, but it also is a place where I can like be a healed person and create something really great.
Okay. So let's talk about a little bit about craft and style, like your process. I love that your work reminds people that you don't need the most expensive tools to make something beautiful and powerful.
Mhm.
What has these limitations in your own practice taught you creatively?
I think, I mean, it teaches me so much because, I operate this way because when I was in college, like I was already broke coming into school. And they never tell you, like, as an art major, by the way, on top of this ridiculous tuition that you're paying, we also want you to buy all the supplies for this course, and it's going to cost you, $500,
It's
$1,000 when
not
you got
even that.
nothing.
You need to buy the computer, you need to buy
Right.
this, you need to buy.
Right. And it just like, I'm already broke. Now I got to pay for this stuff that costs more than what I have. Like, I'm going to have to just like I'm going to have to cut some corners in some places, or I'm going to have to make some things work. And honestly, like, I think that is the best skill set I took out of school is like just making shit work, with what I have at my fingertips. Um, I mean, I think it just makes you like a really scrappy and creative thinker when you don't have everything you need, like perfect and ready to go. Like when you need to kind of like, oh, I need to try to, make this out of that. And I'll just use this, leftover thing from another thing to make, it just makes you think more creatively. And it just like, it creates work that is surprising and is probably not made in a way that anybody else has made it a lot of times because you're using this weird, combination of, leftover or
Mhm,
odd objects to make something. So, I mean, I think to me, it is really important to my work to kind of operate in that way because now I do create work from a place of means, but I still try to like reduce, reuse, recycle because
mhm.
that like,
Yeah.
that's just going to make something that's unique to your situation, to you in that moment. And it might
Mhm,
not be the same. Like, I might not create the same painting, week over week because the supplies, the things around me are different week over
mhm,
week. So I feel like it's one of the most important parts of how I create is to
mhm.
just use what I have, around me. Just, I don't know. It just also just like makes your brain move in a different way. It just makes you push the boundaries a little bit more. So, yeah.
So I'm curious about this. With you using those limited supplies, your work still feels like powerful. So when did you realize that like limiting supplies, using letters could actually carry more of a feeling, not just like a form?
I don't know. I feel like maybe around 2020, when a lot of America was awaking or was waking up to kind of some realities that us black and brown folks face. I think like I maybe not just because of the materials I was using, but just because of the moment. I felt the weight of the moment, like my words mattered in that moment. And I think the way I created felt relevant to that moment and just relevant to us as a people. Like, we as a people are scrappy and we are the most creative people on earth because we have to be scrappy, because we've been put into these situations that are really unfair and ridiculous a lot of times. But we're still like the most creative, most fun, the funniest people because we
Mhm,
are creating from this such a unique position. So I mean, I feel like like those moments just reminded me that like what I do carries weight naturally,
mhm,
but like the way I create carries weight and like what I have to say because of all of that carries weight.
So, the $1,000,000 question I ask every designer and artist and creator, how do you know when to stop? That's it. I look at you, if you guys can see her face, that's the face I get every time because it's just that's something we wrestle with a lot. And it's just like, does it need more grit? Does it need tension? Does it need to let it rest? Do I need to put more effort and soul into it? How do you know when a piece is
I don't always know if I know like when a piece is complete. I think sometimes I just have to like really put my own foot down at myself and be like, you're done. Because like my stuff is really like textured and gritty and like wonky a lot of times. But like I come from a place of like knowing my foundations and knowing like the technical skill set. So like I want to make it right. My brain wants to make it right. My brain wants to make it perfect. And, to the point of like adding texture and adding grit, like the other side of my brain is like, I want to make this the craziest, most jacked up thing I've ever made and like add the craziest texture. But I think, similar to like the evolution of finding your voice, I think there is an evolution to like knowing when to stop and like finding that right balance of like, this is the right amount of like wonky to perfect, and this is the right amount of like clean to textured. And I do think I think a lot of it is about consuming art like from everywhere, not just consuming the art that you make, consuming art from like peripheral spaces and like just knowing what's around, knowing your audience. And then I feel like, really that on top of just like doing it a lot, just you find that balance that feels comfy, but it is really hard. That there's definitely works where I feel like I've gone too far even
Mm,
today. And there are things where it's just like, oh, I could have done that better. I could have made that more perfect.
right.
So I think it's just like you kind of just gotta like slap yourself and be like, stop it. Stop. You're done.
Now, this is a very, I know many artists and creatives deal with this. Do you let others into your space while creating, or do you
Mm.
have to go into a total solace refuge where it's like, when I come out, that's when we can talk. Don't knock on my door. Don't bother me. How is that space for you when you're
I mean, I have had the luxury of living alone for a while, and so I just create in my home, and so I'm just creating by myself, and I do find that to be super helpful. Sorry, I gotta I just, naturally find that to be like a really great way to work. But yeah, now I have a partner who is like entering into my space while I create, they create as well. And so I am finding like their opinions like imposed into my process is a little challenging. So I would say that like being on my own, I'm going to make my best work. But I don't know, sometimes that challenge of like having someone looking over your shoulder or pushing you in a certain direction is a nice way to like shake it up and, I guess
Yeah.
improve the work in a way that you're not really planning for.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I tell my students. I was like, when we have our critique sessions, I'm like, this is where we take the blinders off because we've been so hyper focused on this is what I'm creating, this is what I'm making, this is my baby. And now
Mhm.
you take the blinders off, someone's going to say, "Hey, what about this? Did you see that? Why did
Yeah.
you pick that color? How do you feel about?" And then you start to be able to kind of love hate it, but at the same time, it does kind of open your eyes bigger to be like, you know what? I didn't even think about that. I didn't even see
Yeah.
that. That's cool.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the way you said that too, like, when I get feedback, it is like, I've been doing this for a while, and you'd think that I could take feedback well, but it still, like, kinda stings sometimes when somebody says something about this stuff. Like, even at
Yeah.
work, when I'm making, like, the most boring stuff and someone critiques it, I'm like, "But that's my baby. How could you? I spent a lot of time on that rectangle,"
I
but
birthed this idea. How dare you
yeah.
step in here?
But it is like a nice practice in like taking feedback, and to your point, like then like pausing and being like, okay, that person might have been saying something valuable that is going to improve my work in a meaningful way. And so how can I like absorb that and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
change this in a way that makes sense for what I have envisioned.
I always ask that because many people, it's very rare that I find a creative or a designer that's kind of like by themselves now. I feel
Mhm.
like we are actively reaching and looking for community or even just a partner, like you said, to have these conversations with, to be like, hey, just look at this.
Mhm.
Like you're coming at it from a different point of view. So I think we're kind of looking for more of those like I tell my students, a safe space to critique, because it's like I told them, I said, you'll always have haters. People look at it and be like, that sucks. And it's like, what about it sucks? It
Mhm.
just sucks. And we've had people that have like teachers or professors that have been like, that's not good. What's not
Mhm.
good about it? Fix it. Fix what? Just
Right.
it's not working. What's not working? It's like, so it's nice to have that safe space where you're able to find people that can like have those conversations with you comfortably.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's talk about working in the creative industry and with clients.
Mhm.
You've worked with major brands while maintaining a strong voice. What makes a collaboration feel creatively aligned for you?
Honestly, I think a lot of, like, young people would assume that, like, a client coming to you and being like, "You can do whatever you want," feels like or I mean, sounds like it would be the most freeing,
Biggest
like,
setup ever.
project, but every time I have a client that's like, "You can do whatever you want," you come back with things and they're like, "Oh, but not that. Don't do that. Anything
Right,
else
right.
you can do," and then it ends up being a tougher process, so I think for me, I like to think of it as a sandbox, so, like, you, the client, you give me the 4 walls within the sandbox, and then I'll get in the sandbox and I'll play, and I'll make something good out of those 4 walls that you've given me, so, like, having a very clear brief, having very clear, like, I need to know the audience, I need to know, like, what is the point of this? Why am I doing this? Like, what would success look like out of this project? Like, having all the details, to me, means I can be as creative as I need to be within those parameters and then make something really great. So I think those clients who are coming in with that already like ironed out is always going to be the best. I'd love to say that like the biggest clients always have that stuff ironed out, but that's never the case. Sometimes it's usually like the middle of the road people who have like at least a creative on their side of the
Mhm.
house, helping guide the project. That's I think when I find the most success and tend to have the most fun.
So, what helps you recognize, and we've experienced this, many designers have. What helps you recognize when a client just wants your perspective versus wanting the surface of your style? Like, okay, we just want you to do this lettering versus what do you think? What can you bring to the table that's going to help grow this?
Yeah. I mean, I have clients that will come to me like before I've asked will be like, "We want you to do this phrase and here's like 2 things from your Instagram in the style that we want it." And that to me is like, you you think you want my style and that's what you're asking. Whereas coming to me with like, here's the phrases that we need and being open, one to like those phrases maybe changing a little bit or maybe some punctuation gets left out, and then just providing kind of a wider range in a mood board. So it's like we kind of want this vibe, but we fully trust you to help influence what style comes out of that vibe rather than being as prescriptive as do this way. Usually the people who are asking to do this phrase and here's the 2 Instagram posts that we want you to, like, base it off of are, like, pulling stuff I made from, like, 10 years ago, and I already know, like, they're not coming to me for my expertise. They
Mhm.
just saw some stuff on Pinterest that I made, and they just want a rehash of that. So, um, I don't know, there's a balance to it for sure.
So let me ask you this. Working with some of these major brands, how do you protect your voice no matter what? Because your
Mhm.
voice is very distinct in what you do and what you create, how you feel, what you're not going to bend for. So how do you protect your voice when it comes to these big brands that kind of just like what you said, go to your Instagram, see a picture, but they don't know that that's a protest or that's something speaking up for social justice. So how do you protect your voice?
I think it's about setting expectations, like, from the jump. Like, I think a lot of people will come to me with, "Here's this thing, here's the budget I have, here's the deadline," and then they're asking, what do you charge for this type of thing?" And I always like to come back and be like, "1, like, let's line up the brief, let's make sure we have all the information, but here's my process, here's how I like to work here, like, I'll give you 3 rounds, or you get, 3 to 5 concepts in the first round, you get 2 rounds of refinement, 1 near final round at the end, and here's what I'll deliver in a discovery phase, like really getting detailed about my process, I think like helps or maybe not helps the client, but I think the client always takes a step back and like, oh, okay, this is like a serious artist. This is not
Mhm.
just someone who's like, I'm gonna deliver you some loose JPEGs and hope something is great. Like I'm here to deliver you, I mean, not an experience, that sounds dramatic, but, like, I'm here to, like, help you with this process and really be the expert here. And here's how I work, here's what you're gonna get, and here's what you're not gonna get as well. Like, being clear about that, I think is helpful just to, like, make it serious because I think a lot of these clients just think that artists are just, like, trash, like somebody you can just pick up and spit out when you're done, and if it's not like, if they don't like the work, they don't pay.
Mhm.
I like to make sure people know, like, you are going to be paying for this no matter if you like it or not. It's not it's like, that's a non-negotiable. Like, we may, like, work it out so you don't have to pay as much if it's not, like, fitting your needs or I'm missing the mark, but I'm a serious artist. Imma give you serious work,
Mhm.
and, that is I think it's just, like, setting that expectation and making it feel like something of gravity from the
Mhm.
jump. People just respect the way you wanna approach it, and I don't know, I think it just makes it easier to protect my voice in that way. So it's not necessarily about, like, I won't say this or I won't do this, but I want you to know I'm not here to mess around. I'm here to
Mhm.
give you something really great and really successful, but only if you let me do that, and I think that that's from, like, a mutual respect.
So, have you ever encountered a project or an assignment where you were just like, you agreed to it, and then later on you're just like, you know what, this, I'm not feeling it. Like, how have you dealt with something like that that has just been, we've all have been there where it's like that the monetary's there, but it's like an internal conflict. How have you dealt with that?
I mean, I feel like it depends. There have definitely been cases where projects start out really great, and then by the time, every CEO's nephew, mama's brother's been in on the process, decision-making process, like, it turns out awful and terrible, and I mean, I don't know if there's, like, I think you just learn from those moments and know, like, next time I need to, like, speak with this client with discernment and try to understand as much, again, from the jump so that I'm not, like, finding myself in this position halfway down the road. And again, setting up those boundaries with how you work through your process, it leaves less room for people to, beat the project into, something terrible. But, there's also moments where I kinda just have to, like, fire the client, if it's not working out that way, like, if it does feel like the client is pulling it in a direction that doesn't feel comfortable or, like, the or if I find, like, morals are not aligning, like, I had to, like, stop working with somebody because the way they were talking about specific people and, like, groups of people was not the way I'm comfortable. It's not something I'm comfortable with, and it's like, "Hey, look, you're great, this project's probably great, but, I think we are ready to, like, see other people." So
Almost definitely. That's why I was like, yeah, part ways. It's not for me.
mhm.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's not you. It's like I tell most of my kids,
Mhm.
it's not you, it's me. It's
It's me.
totally me. So how is it being fully yourself? Has it opened more doors to clients, or has it kind of put you on this very narrow path? How's that?
I think it's done both of those things, like, I do find myself discovering new types of clients that I love working with and for, and it also makes me nervous that I'm only being chosen as, like, the Black woman who does social justice stuff, like, which is great, like, I love doing that stuff, and it is, like, cool to, be designing for things I'm passionate about. But at the same time, I don't want that to be the only thing somebody hires me for. I want to be hired as a great artist as well, and a great artist who can like say other things that are maybe not as heavy as like Black women matter or Black lives matter. So yeah, I think I lost like the question
No,
while
no, no. I
talking, but
said how I just said how has being authentically yourself, has it opened more doors or closed more doors? And you said it's kind of 50-50, which I can see that because I feel And it's your moral compass. Sometimes it's just like, hey, it's a no, and it's not you. It's just how things are right now. And sometimes it's based on the climate too. And sometimes it's just like with a lot of conflict, sometimes you want to do something uplifting to kind of just boost your spirits. And I
Yeah,
get that.
totally.
I totally get that. Okay. So I'm going to introduce this one. This is a bonus quickfire round. I'm going to ask you, you give me one or the other, and you can explain it.
Okay.
Marker or brush pen?
I think marker right now. I think back in the day I would have said brush pen, but right now I'm messing with a marker.
Clean edges or rough texture?
Rough texture all day. All day.
Tape or ruler?
Tape, I think. Because tape you can just leave on and add some paint on top of it and the extra texture.
Okay, you got to pick one of these three, either an album cover, mural, or poster.
Mural all day. Big and something you can stand in front of.
One word that describes where your head goes when you lock in. Wow,
Man,
I
the
think I
space.
stumped somebody. I think I
Yeah, you
stumped
did.
somebody.
I said, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, all right. How about this one? Dream, band, or artist to collaborate with?
Hiatus Coyote.
Okay. Last but not least, favorite source of inspiration? Music, art galleries, books, poems, or just sitting by yourself?
Music, I think, for sure.
Music. Okay.
Mhm.
I can't believe I actually stumped somebody. Usually I get the ones who are just like, bam, bam, bam. They get all of them. And I'm like, okay. You were like, what do I do? Where does
I
my
know.
brain go?
I was like, let me think about this. I never considered.
Go ahead. Okay, so as we're coming towards the end of our conversation, it's just some of these questions I want to just bring up as like a reflection for you. What have you learned about yourself in this current creative season?
Wow. I mean, I feel like I'm learning that I'm more resilient than I give myself credit for. I think there is like, I mean, everybody knows this, but there is so much happening in this world right now that just feels like so crazy. Like I literally wake up and I'm like, I cannot believe people expect us to like go to work and do a job and like perform and be a human every day when all of this stuff is happening. And yet, like I'm still creating, I'm still making art. It might look different than it did last year, but I feel, very proud that I'm like able to like push through some of this hard stuff and still make things.
What kind of stories, what kind of stories or messages feel most important to you right now?
I mean, I think in terms of creating art, I mean, I know a lot of people say this, but like anybody can do it. Like I recently heard someone probably around my parents' age just like shocked that somebody else had like picked up a new hobby in life as if you like have to do the same 10 things that you started doing when you were 18. You got to do that for the rest of your life. Like we can do new stuff and like try new things and we can evolve and like we can be evolved. Like, things that happen to us can like change and I don't know, just change the way we are, the way we create, the way we consume, all of it.
So here's something else. Just think about this. What is something your younger self needed to hear that you know now?
It's not that serious, I think. I think, when you're young, it feels like, doing everything right and perfect feels like the most important thing in the world. And everything you do feels like the most important thing, but like, it's not that serious. And that's the case for everybody. Like, your favorite artist is not taking it that seriously. Like, they are a fallible human. They like mess up and do terrible things, and you're not seeing it all the time, but like, it's not that serious.
So, how has your definition of success changed as you've grown in your practice and as you've grown from when you first started in lettering?
I mean, I think I give myself more grace now. When I first started out, I think I wanted to know what my definition of success was. And like I had these, I want to be here in 5 years. I want to like get this role and I want to be able to work for this client. And I feel very privileged to have done, at least a portion of that and like worked with a lot of really great people. Like if my 10 years younger self knew what I was doing now, like I think I'd be so proud of myself. But now like that I have done all this, it feels like, okay, what do I do now? And think having that grace for like this moment where I don't know what I'm doing or don't know what my definition of success is okay.
What are you trying to say through your work that you haven't fully said yet?
I mean, I hate to like cop out and say what I just said, but it's not that serious, I think. Like I do say, like I try to like tell people that often and try to convey that, but I don't know if I've like completely convinced, like I don't know if I'm convinced that it's not that serious. Things do still feel like very serious and like I need things to be perfect or this way or that way. But like I had an old boss who used to say like, we are not saving the world. Graphic design isn't saving the world. Like there are messages and things that we do that are literally life-saving, but like at the end of the day, we're just drawing pictures and things. And like what's most important are the like people you spend your time with and like the relationships you invest in and some of these like really real things. But I think I'm still learning like what I do is not the heaviest thing in the world. Like have grace, have space for yourself to mess up and grow.
I think I'm going to take that "it's not that serious" line from you and use it with my students in class, because it's like before we were talking, before we started recording, I was sharing with her how I get students coming in from business, journalism, all these different places. And I think having them understand that it's not that serious will probably lighten their load and allow them
Yeah.
to freely connect, because I feel like especially in school wise, everything is high pressure, high value,
hmm
high da 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 da. But I think having the students to sit there and reflect, being like, hey, it doesn't look like what I wanted to. Okay, scrap it. Let's keep going. What is it that you
Right.
want? What is in your head
Right.
that you want to get out? So I think most definitely I'm taking that one to share with the students.
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta, like, unclench your cheeks,
Yes.
Once you
Yes.
unclench, like, things flow a lot easier and,
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
there's
Yep.
so
Yep.
much more grace and room to, like, get crazy and have fun.
So, last but not least, when people look back on your body of work years from now, what do you hope they say you stood for?
I mean, I hope they say I stood for my people. I hope they say that, like, I stood for, I don't know, like, creating something that felt honest and true, but not necessarily perfect. Yeah, I just hope I mean, authentic is probably way overused, but I hope, like, people feel like it felt authentic to, like, the moments and the times and the, events that were happening at the time I was creating.
So dope. Miss Cymone, thank you for being with us on this podcast today. Where can the people find you and check out your work?
I am Simon and Moose on most of the social media platforms that you can find me on: Pinterest, Threads, Instagram, all that good stuff. And you can find me at simonandmoose.com. Or if you're someone who wears a suit and tie, find me at cymonewilder.com for a little bit more buttoned up portfolio.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. My name is Justin Robinson, the talented, the gifted, the creator herself, Cymone Wilder, and this is the Art School Graduate Podcast. We'll catch you guys later. Peace.